Good morning. Today is Sunday, May the 3rd, and this is the Parker Marchant Show, and I'm your host, LM Love. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in today. On a very serious note, we are going to be talking about the state of Baltimore, Maryland today. As we know, what has been a major headline for so many days now is actually the unfortunate and unfair massacre of Freddie Gray, whose head was slammed into a police van, according to reports. At this point, charges have been filed against the officers that were involved or other. The fact of the matter is, this was a person who was not armed at the time of his being approached by law enforcement, and therefore it was not warranted. It has led to essentially riots in Maryland because the city is in turmoil. They are upset. Many people are speaking out about the fact that they feel as if they are criminalized automatically for being impoverished and living in communities that are not experiencing the revitalization that you can clearly see in the downtown Baltimore areas, such as the Inner Harbor, basically right across from Federal Hill, which is a very upscale neighborhood where a lot of people have incomes in excess of $50,000 and upward. So it's definitely a disparity in that city. It's very visible even around the Johns Hopkins area, the hospital, the famed hospital. There's a lot of construction going on, but then you also still have a lot of homes that are abandoned and are in very need of serious reconstruction, and that's just not happening in various areas. So a lot of people are being left behind, according to some of the reports that have come out of that area. Unfortunately, the mayor is receiving criticism for not acting soon enough, whereas the governor is being saluted and applauded for his actions. So it's very difficult, a time where Baltimore is certainly in a state of conflict, and of course there's more to come. We have seen pastors become involved, such as Pastor Jamal Bryant, a very successful pastor in the Maryland area, and he has definitely been out there on the vanguard trying to do what he can to keep the peace, basically. These protests have been, for the most part, peaceful. However, more recently there was a situation where a CVS was extremely vandalized, and of course that caught the attention of the media, and some people are saying if it had not been for the vandalization of the CVS, perhaps the story would not have picked up steam. That, of course, is an opinion, it's neither a fact, so we are really not quite certain, and I don't want to go ahead and give credence to something that has not been essentially validated. However, there's no question that there is serious social unrest right now. There's a curfew in that city, and a lot of people are extremely upset over the horrible death of Freddie Gray. And at this point, the enforcement officers accused of this are essentially going to be facing criminal prosecution and facing a trial. Whether or not this actually ends up being a situation where they will serve time is yet to be seen. However, on April 12th, the 25-year-old Gray did suffer a traumatic spinal injury, and this, of course, is what did lead to his death, sadly, after he was struck in the head by the van. It's really a terrible and awful thing. There's no way in the world that we can actually even downplay the brutality in that situation. All we can do at this point is essentially hope for the best and pray that there will be justice. There will be justice, because as we have already seen, there's not been a lot of justice in so many other situations. We can point to with recent arrest and police attacks on men that were essentially unarmed at the time of their arrest. I'm certain that Baltimore does not want to see a repeat of that with the Gray situation, and of course our condolences are with the family of that young man. It is very unfortunate that these things seem to be happening at a rampant rate, and there's no real explanation for the fact that human life is being treated so cavalierly in this manner. When someone is not armed, they are absolutely not a threat. And even though you may or may not be frightened for your life, if someone does not have a weapon, there's not as much that they can do, particularly when there's that one person and then there's several officers there. So already the person is outnumbered. So we really can't say that it's a situation where the person is going to have the power to overpower those people that are essentially challenging him as a citizen for being out of the bounds of the law. So all we can say right now is that we're going to be watching this story. I'm going to be providing updates from time to time, and we want to see justice prevail here. We don't want to see what happened in the case with Trayvon Martin, where George Zimmerman was not charged and he did walk free. Although there is a young man who will never live a life, whose life ended that night because Zimmerman decided to take matters into his own hand and acted with brutal force and used a firearm on a team that was not armed. So I just want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm sorry that I had to come here with something that is really tragic, but obviously I had to broach the subject. It's just too important to ignore. I will certainly be paying more attention to this story as things unfold and as more details are released. And my eye is certainly on Baltimore, a city that has great potential, being the gateway to DC as it is. And of course there are a lot of people there that are achieving. They do have one of the most world-renowned hospitals in the country, Johns Hopkins, as well as one of the uppermost universities in the country, Johns Hopkins University. Therefore, there are certainly some positives there. You have the University of Maryland, the law school. I mean, there's a lot that particular city has to offer, and it would be a shame for that potential to be realized, even though it seems as if a lot of people are being left behind, and that does need to change. That definitely does need to change. Everyone should have a chance to achieve. Everyone should have a chance to succeed. And unfortunately, it appears, according to reports, that in Baltimore this is not the case, has not been the case in the last decades, where the city has been experiencing a regentrification, as it has happened in many nations or in many countries across the nation. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. But again, my deepest condolences to the Gray family for their loss. There is nothing more traumatic than losing a child, and there's absolutely very little you can say about someone who has to say goodbye to the child that they had so many hopes and dreams for. Gray will never be here again, neither will Martin. They were young men at the prime of their lives, just about to start out. Martin was not even an adult yet. He was 19 years old. He was a kid, and he just had so much to offer and potential that wasn't realized. According to his parents, he was definitely not a kid who was in trouble with the law. He was someone who had aspirations, who was going to really pursue something, and he was going to be a regularly contributing member of the population. So it's very sad that we will never know what Martin or Gray could have become. And of course, Michael Brown. Now, it is true that Brown was in trouble. He was doing something in the store. He was stealing from the store when he was actually apprehended on the street by the officers. However, he was also unarmed, and he was unfortunately subjected to brute force, and he was murdered basically in cold blood. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to look at it. So that's another young life potential loss. If he could have been rehabilitated, gotten the assistance he needed to maybe enter some type of job training program, there's no doubt that Brown could have become a contributing member of society, somebody who could have been productive, who could have led a happy, normal life. Sometimes people can be troubled in their youth. They go through changes and they learn as they grow, and if someone gets involved soon enough, they can take a child that has been labeled as trouble and bad and all the other negative things that you can think of, and turn that child's life around so that when he approaches adulthood, he truly becomes an achiever and he becomes someone the community can respect. It is very unfortunate that we would never know what Brown could have become if that had not been his plight. So we just want to make sure that we don't forget that these are the children of people and that they have to bury their young. They have to say goodbye to the children that they had so many dreams and hopes for. And no one ever wants to be in that position. Nobody ever wants to lose a child. Your child is supposed to survive you. It's not the other way around. And it's so sad to see that this is happening so frequently. It brings to mind the tragic tale of Emmett Till, who was actually in the 1950s he was murdered. It was a lynch mob. They went to his home and took him out in the dark of night, and he was never seen again. And they lynched him essentially, and he was found later on in the river. It was just awful. It was certainly awful, and again, justice was denied in that case. And of course, that was so many decades ago, and it's kind of frightening to think that maybe history is repeating itself here in the case of Martin, where justice did not prevail, and also in the case of Brown. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the Freddie Gray case. We just hope that the Baltimoreans will come together, they will unite in peace. This is not a time for violence, this is not a time for vandalization. They are creating more problems than they need right now. This is a time to find out how to reconcile and how to get justice in a case where obviously it has been denied, and it does not need to continue. That is the only thing I can say. So this again has been Ellen Love. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I did not mean to be here so long, but sometimes you're talking and you're thinking about things as you go along, and it definitely is a story that is worthy of recognition, and I will definitely be trying to bring you updates on a regular basis. As we know, life gets hectic. We have a lot of responsibilities. You know, whether you're a parent or you're not, or you're a professional and you're trying to make your career mean something, your time is valuable, highly valuable. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope that you will have a wonderful, healthy, productive, and rewarding week ahead. It is Sunday. I hope you're spending time with your family and the ones that matter to you most. And as I always like to close, always remember to live today like it's your last one. We do not have a crystal ball, and tomorrow is not promised to any of us. So take care, be careful, and love and live hard.